Hello, my name's Casey, and welcome All Beer TV to Brewery de Ranke. So this is our brewing installation here at de Ranke. It's equipped to brew about 4,000 liters of beer per batch. And we only brew about 4 or 5 times per week, 1 time per day. We have a very simple brewing installation. We have a mash and watering tun over here. There's a holding tank in the cellar. And after the mash, it goes into the boiling kettle where the wort is cooked, hops are added, and then we collect the wort from that kettle. Without whirlpool, without any extra filtration, it goes directly to fermentation. So this is an old style brewing installation, but it's made of steel, modern materials. The mash and filtration are all in one kettle. It's custom made for de Ranke. From down here, where it goes into the cellar, we collect it by gravity in the old-fashioned way. All of the wort, which is sweet and ready to be cooked, hopped, and then fermented, comes up to the boiling kettle. The boiling kettle is also custom made for our brewery because we work with whole hops that we buy locally. We add them all directly into the wort. So we have a very simple filtration system which is not typical of a modern brewery. And Nino and Guido, the two founders of de Ranke, had this custom made for our type of beers. Today we use 2 different hop varieties. So at de Ranke, at this brewery, we are specialized in bitter and hoppy beers, especially from a Belgian perspective. And Nino and Guido, the two founders of the brewery, wanted to work locally. And the easiest way to work locally is buy directly from the farmer. They only sold at that time whole hops, whole flowers, whole cone hops, not pellets. And so we've always purchased that way, actually. And what we found actually is with the whole hops, our bitter beers have a much softer, smoother bitterness. We can brew 50, 60, 70 IBUs, which is very bitter, without hop burn, without that aggressive hop taste. We can make very nice, soft, drinkable hoppy beers. So we have a custom built installation. That's a very simple way of filtering the hops. It just keeps them in the kettle. And these are the hops from XXX Bitter, our hoppiest beer that we brewed today. My colleague is going to go in there tomorrow morning with the ladder to take out the hops. It's a simple way of removing them. It's just a little warm and it's a lot of work. But it actually doesn't take that much time. It takes maybe 30 minutes to take them out. So that's actually quite specific. I won't show it to you now because it's too warm. Most of our cellar is just a giant refrigerator. That's where we mature the beers. After the first week of fermentation, all of our beers come down into the cellar, where we hold them for another month, somewhere between 4 and 5 weeks typically. And during this phase, they continue to ferment, and then eventually the yeast settles out of the beer. Without any extra cold steps or any extra filtration, we wait until the beer is clear. And every beer is fermented and re-fermented with that yeast. Just as you would see at a very large brewery, except much smaller here. Every bottle is inspected for any foreign materials or faults in the bottles to make sure it's well washed as well. Every bottle has a vacuum inside of it, and then we fill it with carbon dioxide to avoid oxidation. And the flat beer that's dosed with sugar and fresh yeast will be pushed into this machine where every bottle is filled by gravity as it does a tour. Okay. And the beer is still flat at this point. It only becomes carbonated after we cap the bottle and then leave it warm for a couple weeks. We put labels with some glue directly on every bottle, and then the labels are easy to wash off for the next use. In Belgium, it's typical to reuse bottles, and that's something we've started to do recently. So this is our hop fridge. We buy all of our hops directly from the hop farmer just after the harvest, and we keep them the entire year in our storage at 0 degrees. These are some Hallertau Mittelfru hops from Belgium, from this year's harvest. You can see Mittelfru here. These are the hops that we use in our triple Guldenberg. And we work 100% with whole hops like this. The advantage of whole hops is, let's find a prettier one to break open. The advantage of whole hops is that we are just trying to get this lupulin, the powder on the inside.
Aceites esenciales.
Exactly, we want our essential oils from the hops. We don't want the plant material, we don't want to extract from the leaves, we don't want to extract from the inside of the plant, we just want the essential oils. And so when we brew very bitter beer with hops, the bitterness is always better with the whole hops. And it's mostly for that reason, actually, that we do it. This is where we mature all of our sour beers. We will age our beers up to 3 or 4 years, depending on what we're making and what we're blending it with. We use old hops left over from the previous years for these sour beers. They protect the beers against oxidation and also against acidification. They keep the sourness softer. And we brew many styles, from oud brown to our own type of lambic that we make here, to stock ales, all for blending or for aging and bottling. So these beers, when we begin to sell them, are usually a minimum of 2 years old. It's a small percentage of our production. It takes a lot of space, but it's another passion of ours, not just hops.
Hi, how are you?
It's a pleasure to host you here at Ranke.
Okay, start with a little story about this brasserie.
So Ranke has existed for 27 years. Nino Bassel and Guido de Vos created it in 1997. Ranke was created to reintroduce hops into Belgian beers, because at that time there was no hoppy beer in Belgium. So the two founders created it to bring the style of beer that they loved back onto the Belgian market. They started it with, this beer, Guldenberg, which is a hoppy triple, XX Bitter, which you'll taste next, which is an extra hoppy Belgian ale, and a Christmas beer, which fits more into the category of IPA than a typical Christmas beer.
Yes, we see all the brasserie and you explain each part, but if you like, talk about the method, the why you do this kind of beer. Is no filter, very little to put inside the other around.
So the way we make beers is actually quite simple. We try to make simple, tasty beers without pasteurization and without filtration. So our brewing equipment is quite nostalgic. It looks much like a brewery would have looked 100 years ago, except it's made of steel, of course. More modern materials. We have a simple mash and filtration tun, a simple boiling kettle, to which we add only whole hops, no pellets, no extracts, just the hops directly in the wort. And the kettle holds the hops afterwards, and we have to clean them out by going inside.
Yes, so fun, so fun.
I prepared the ladder for you. I don't know why you didn't go inside.
I'm very scared.
But, and we do a very simple workflow. We just have to pay a lot of attention in our brewery because every single valve is manual. We ferment for a week, we mature our beers for 1 more month, and everything is re-fermented in the bottle and in the keg. And all we're trying to do is in a very simple way, without adding any extra steps or any extra ingredients to clarify or stabilize the beer. We're just trying to make tasty hoppy beers in a Belgian way. I would call this an outstanding triple. If we put it in a beer competition like we discussed earlier, it would never win the gold medal in a triple because it's too hoppy. But we add the hops for the customer, not for the medal.
Yes.
For you.
Yes.